Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the MSI X99A XPOWER Gaming Titanium. To be honest with you, did it really need that gaming in the red? I mean, it's lovely. We have another silver titanium looking board and they had to go and ruin it with the gaming. Come on, it's lovely. Anyway, so it's going to be around the £300 mark, which sounds like an eye-watering amount of money, but for an X99 board at the moment, especially in the UK, because of all of the price with the pound and import taxes and all that sort of stuff, pound against the dollar, it's actually not that bad a price for an X99 board. But what we'll do is we'll bring you in, we'll have a look. I've done a lot of testing with this, found some little niggles with it, which I spent a lot of time trying to work out. So it's not going to be one of the quickest videos in the world, but hopefully I'll explain to you why. But we will bring you in and give you a really good look round. Okay then, so we'll give you a quick skim around the board at the highlights. So first things first, we've got the lovely chipset heatsink down here, which is all nice, big and beefy. You can see if I spin it round that it actually goes over here as well, and you've got nice, really thick aluminium tops. Same up here as well, it's really nice thick aluminium that goes over the top. They're all really kind of nice and beefy. You do have another bit of a heatsink over here for the MOSFETs on this side with a heat pipe, but the I/O shield on the side isn't metal at all, it's just plastic, and you can see it rattles around. The other thing is there is a screw back here, and it doesn't really hold on to the shield very well at all. Now this is the way it arrived. I don't know whether it's a dodgy one, but I did take the screw out. It's very short. It feels like it should have come in a little bit more, but it definitely needs better securing. So this is a little bit lackluster. I think it would have been really nice if they used the same aluminium that was on this side to give it a really kind of chunky and premium feel. And I think they've lost out on a trick with this one. Up in the top hand corner up here, what we can do if we zoom you in a little bit, as you can see, we've got the kind of overclock area here. These dip switches are so you can disable each individual, the 4 main PCI Express lanes. So if you've got all graphics cards in, water cooled or frozen, and one of them is faulty, that can stop the system from booting, so you can disable them. That's what they're there for. You've got some buttons here for the overclocking to be able to increase the base clock and the multiplier. This little switch up here is an auto kind of overclocking switch where you can just flick it round and overclock. I have tested this though, and the volts it uses are far in excess of the volts that you could achieve if you were to do it manually. It doesn't do it per CPU, it's just got a blanket set of settings that are put in there. So they've had to put extra volts in there to make up for the, you know, CPUs that might not have won the silicon lottery. So this might be a good idea for some people, but I can't stress that if you've bought a board of this caliber, it would really do you well to maybe put some time into learning how to overclock it properly. So we've got I actually like this button. It's the discharge button. If you press that when you've taken the power out, it's for this is essentially, if you're going to change some hardware, you press this, discharges all the electric from the board. Obviously you have to do that after you've unplugged the power supply from the mains, but it's just a really nice way of getting all the electric out so that you can then safely change memory, change a graphics card or something like that. We come around, we've got 2 horizontal USB 3s. We've got an internal USB 3C up here. Then we've got SATA down here and a U.2, so this is for your super fast we'll say solid state drives, but this actually does share the same bandwidth as the M.2 because they both run on 32 gigabits a second. It's 4 PCI Express lanes, so that's where that comes from. Down at the bottom we've got 2 USB 2 internals. I actually really like this. We've got overclock buttons down at the bottom here. There are fan headers literally all over the place, which is really nice to see. When we go around the back, now I'm just trying to find where the water pump header is. But anyway, you've got a water pump header on here. So around the back, what we can do is this is your BIOS clear, but this is a USB flashback. So this is BIOS flashback, and it is called exactly that, Yes, it does sound incredibly familiar, but yes, BIOS flashback. Then we've got 2 USB 2s up here and a PS2 for those of you gamers or overclockers that are still using those. This is your USB 3.1, you've got C and an A, USB 3s here, gigabit Ethernet, you've got Bluetooth and wireless here. I have heard some people are having problems with the Intel driver for this with the Windows 10 anniversary update. If you do get that, until there's a fix, you will have to take all this off and just whiz this out. Digital audio, and then underneath here we have underneath the plastic cover we have the overclock socket or OC socket. And yes, it does sound familiar. There's a lot of pretty much exactly the same naming schemes going on with some of the things. But anyway, it sounds familiar. We will leave it there. I do really like the what they've done with the mirror on the chipset down here. I actually think that's really nice. It's nice to have a board that's not covered in black and red as well. What we can also see is with the PCI Express, they've all got the steel things for extra rigidity. Although to be honest with you, you only really need these if you're planning on having a humongous graphics card, coupled with the fact that you might move it around a lot, so it's going to drop. Just make sure that even though you've got these, make sure that you bolt them in correctly at the back, because sometimes the sagging can be taken out by screwing them in properly on the back of your case. But these metal shields and supports are also carried through onto all of the DIMM slots, so it does give it a really nice metal heavy feel. It's only really let down by the fact that where they've slapped titanium on the back, it's actually plastic and loose, as we've already showed. So yes, so I'm just going to stick this little bit in because I forgot before we move on to doing all the chit chat and about the memory and all that kind of stuff, because this next bit's going to be quite long. If you want to go and have a look at all the graphs and all the testing, because we've done lots of other tests, then go and have a look on the Overclock 3D website. But now we're going to go in and get deep and kind of picky and give you loads of information about some of the issues that we've had with the board, despite the fact that we've got loads of different hardware that we can test it with. Right then peeps, on to the testing and the performance and the overclocking and all that sort of stuff. So, I can get a lot of flack for making my videos too long, is normally what people say, and that I do waffle. Yeah, I might not be as to the point as I could be, but my problem is I see my position as being, with the limited time I get to spend working with a product like this, I need to then get as much of that information over to you as possible. Now, if you're looking for a bullet point review where you kind of go, it's pretty good at this, it's pretty good at that, it's not so good at this, it's normally when I say it's not so good at this without an explanation, that the same people that moan about the fact that I spend too long on something would then say I wasn't being fair to a brand. So I try and explain as much as I can do. And as I said, where it's kind of natural and it's not scripted or anything like that, it's more of, well, yeah, it's more of a natural thing, really. I try to present it in a way that's like me and you, that's you behind the camera and me looking into each other's eyes or having a chat over a pint in a table in a pub. And that's my way of doing things. And if you would prefer a shorter, kind of less personal approach, and, you know, however you would like to describe it, because I could have gone certain ways there, then, you know, maybe these videos just aren't for you. And I would be sorry about that. Don't think I'm just telling you to go away, but I'm doing this how it is natural to me and unforced. But anyway, so there's a lot to talk about with the MSI stuff. So, I've tested a few X99 boards now, and I've probably not put as much work into an X99 board system review as I have done with this one yet. So in the test rig, 6950X, but because of what I'm going to talk to you about now, I ended up dropping this 6850K in as well, just to back up what was going on. So when I do a stock test, just to let you know, all I do with stock is I chuck a 2800 megahertz LPX kit in, and then what I do is I go into the BIOS, I enable XMP and I leave it, and I do that with all of the boards, and that's our stock runs. You may think 2800 megahertz is quite high, but again, for sort of a stock run, there's no reason why you wouldn't want a 2800 megahertz kit, and I personally don't think a 2400 megahertz kit is much of a step forward with DDR4, because we could have easily done that with DDR3. So we go 2800 megahertz because it means it's having to stretch its legs a little bit. So we do that, we do our stock runs. I really should get better clippy clip things, or not throw them around in my hand Right, so if you're wondering, you can find these little DRAM things on eBay, and I have them like this so I can change them easier and I can see how many sticks are out. And anyway, right, so we do our stock runs like that, and the stock runs, as you'll see in a minute. With a stock run, if the stock runs aren't that great, it's normally a BIOS thing. Then what I do is, this is when having lots of stuff around, because I pretty much, anything that I'm allowed to keep, I keep, so that when it comes to issues like this, it means I can really go to town. When it came to 3000 megahertz memory, because I worked my way up, I worked through, and they were all, what we'll do is we'll go to 3200. So with the Titanium, MSI have an option where you can bundle some Corsair 3200 LPX with the board. So you think to yourself, awesome, it's pretty much the 3200 megahertz ready. So I dropped the Vengeance in, bosh, worked, XMP'd fine, could overclock it, fine, brilliant. But because I've got other kits, what I then did is I tried some faster memory. Now normally if you put a faster memory kit in, for argument's sake 3600 megahertz, as I have done with the other X99 boards, you can't run XMP, and that's unsurprising. 3600 megahertz is a bit too much of an ask. But what you can do with 3600 megahertz is put it in, enable XMP, and then where it says speed 3600 megahertz, you can start to knock it back. So you go 34, 66, 3400, 33, 33, and you can work your way back, and you can find a point with the 100 base clock that it will post on the XMP setting, despite the fact that you've changed the bandwidth of it. So we can do that. But that was the point where I kind of noticed an issue. And that was 3600 megahertz kit. I couldn't even get it to post. So normally when you put it in and you press power, it will boot up at either 2133 or 2400, because that is the kind of the starting speeds for the memory. So if you have just fitted your memory and not enabled XMP or gone into your BIOS and set it up properly, it won't be running at the speed that's on the box. They don't work like that. You do have to tell them to work at their proper speed. So that might be something for you guys to go and check at home. If you open up CPU-Z, go to the memory tab, it should be running at half the speed of your memory because of double data rate. So if you're looking to get 2800 megahertz, or you've got 2800 megahertz memory, it should be running, or it should say in CPU-Z 1400, and you can work it out from there out. So I couldn't get the 3600 kit to work at all. So I thought to myself, maybe it's just the problem because it's quicker. So I started putting my other 3200 megahertz kits in, because we knew the LPX worked. So we had honestly, pretty much all of these on the table are 3200 megahertz. Now we've got a couple of kits, few kits from Corsair. We've got a Kingston kit. We've got three lots of G-Skill. We've got some Clev. We've got quite a bit from Crucial. I even tried the new LED Vengeance. None of it would work. And when I say work, I don't mean XMP. It wouldn't even let it post. Now you're thinking to yourself, for God's sake, Tom, you could have just said it doesn't work with most 3200 megahertz memory. And you're right, but there's a slight problem with this. And that is, you go to the store where you're going to buy your board from, e-tailer, you see a bundle with the LPX and you think to yourself, I don't fancy LPX, I want some of the new LED. Or I've already got, from my other X99 or Z170 system, some 3200 megahertz Clev. I know that memory works. So I'm going to buy that, bosh. You get it in, you start building, you press power, and it doesn't post. It just keeps cycling. You see the little lights going around all the time. Now this is, with the really like this second I got my CPUs and that kind of mumbo jumbo, we did initially have some memory issues. It's a BIOS problem, but I'm not being funny. This stuff came out months ago now, so there's no excuse for it. With some of the other brands, I've seen their memory compatibility come on in absolute leaps and bounds. So for what I would call a high-end MSI board to still be having problems, and to be honest with you, the bit that kind of upsets me a little bit is it's obviously capable of 3200 megahertz, but it's almost like they've focused on one kit. And the other thing, and this was one of the reasons why I dug into it, is because when they first said to me about sending the board, they asked me if I had this kit. And they said, if you've not got it, we'll get Corsair to send you one, because we'd like you to test with that. And then that also says to me, hang on a minute, something's not quite right. So that was another reason for me digging in. So if you want to get a 3200 megahertz kit with your titanium, at the point of this review going live, only one kit works. And that to me is a little bit nuts. That's not the way to be, you know, trying to get £300 out of someone for a motherboard. Think of all the poor souls out there that have bought this and have gone and bought their favourite memory brand, whether, you know, whichever way that they want to swing. And if they've gone 3200 megahertz, how many people have sent the board back saying it's faulty, when really it's not faulty, it's just being let down by horrifically picky BIOS, because that's what it all comes down to in the end. So right, so we've got that. Then when it comes to overclocking, one of the things I will say is I do overclock with a 2800 megahertz in, just to see how far we can get. And then I go upwards with it beyond that point to see if we've got some limitations. With this, we did. 2800 megahertz, it got 4.4 gigahertz. Fine. The one thing I will say is at stock, the temps were really good. We were looking around the 70 degrees mark at stock with XMP enabled. And then what I do is I run OCCT and I run that through, and it's always the same sort of kit and really good temperatures. You'll understand why I have to focus on temperatures in a minute. Went into the overclock with the 2800 megahertz. We've got 2400 megahertz running. Lovely, not a problem. That was quite literally XMP, and then I put 44 in on the multiplier ratio. I put the voltage in, bosh. Pretty simple, lovely. When I put the 3200 megahertz in, it actually got a bit flaky. 3200 megahertz at XMP, with stock CPU, it had got warm. And when you go into the BIOS and you have a look, there are three main voltages that you need to keep an eye on. You've got the system agent voltage, you've got the VCC IO, and you've got the cache volts. Now, as I've already said, this has got the overclock socket on it. So the one that I'm watching implicitly is the cache, because with the old X99 carbon that I did before, cache on that, you could have been looking at 1.3, 1.35 volts for 3000 megahertz. For 3200 megahertz, it didn't go above 1.48. But the problem was, 1.048. Problem was, is even with 2800 megahertz at stock, as in like running 2133, it said 1.048, and it actually didn't move at all. And in that, I mean, I could manually set it to something else and it would always read to the side 1.048. So I'm not sure whether that cache volt is correct or not. It could just be a BIOS glitch with all I'm running. And before you ask what BIOS, I'm running the very latest one that's on the website for the review. Despite the fact that they've sent me other BIOSes directly, I use the one from the website. So we got all that running. The system agent voltage, you really, really do, and this is a really big point. If you buy this, you have bought it, whatever, system agent voltage, it's got an uncanny knack of absolutely raging itself. So like I was getting 1.38 volt on the system agent voltage. I could get that down to 1.15 and it still be 100% stable. You do not and should not have your system agent voltage that high unless you've got mammoth cooling or something. It's actually it's a point where it's not actually that good for the CPU. So you always want to try and bring those things in. So if you're a fit and forget kind of guy, it's going to naturally absolutely rage that to an unhealthy level. So we've done that. VCCIO, that was absolutely fine. Some of the other boards that I've worked with can actually rage that one instead. This one was kind of hovering below a volt really. 1.1 was about the point that we ended up with when we had the final overclock in place. When we come to the final overclock, like I said, with the 3200 in, temperatures were up a lot. To the point we were looking between 8 and 10 degrees higher than we were with the 2800 megahertz with no other changes. So then when we started to work on the overclocks as well,
I went searching for that 4.4. I couldn't get 4.4 at safe temps, to be honest with you. With the 2800 megahertz, we were looking at about 1.35 volts, and then that allowed us 4.4. 4.4 is quite hard with a 6950X. You do have to get a good one. Most of them are going to be kind of getting 4.2 to 4.3. Problem is that it does seem to be a fluctuation between the CPU's temperatures. Now, I've always used the same one, so I know what mine is capable of. So when I say to you that this has gone up just by making minor changes, it's not the difference between the CPUs, it's because something's wrong, and there was. To the point where, like I said, the temperatures jumped. So I then go looking in the voltages, I couldn't find anything untoward. So to me it's saying there's a voltage maybe that I'm not seeing or don't have control over, that's been ramped right up to be able to get the memory to play ball. But like I said, it's made a massive difference, a problem with temperatures. And normally what I do is with OCCT, you can set a thermal limit, which I have to 80. And then one of the cores will get to about 82 and it will stop the test. Well, I was getting that to that level of temperatures within 2 minutes. Because I was then trying, I thought to myself, right, okay, so we can't find what it is. I'm going to back the voltages off. I'm going to drop the clock back. So we ended up going at 1.3 volts for 4.3 with the 3200 megahertz memory. We were still getting absolute, like, instantaneous spikes with the temperatures. So then I thought to myself, I'll give it a chance, we'll see how far it would go. So I put the OCCT limit up to 90 degrees, and then it was doing that within 4 minutes. So in the end, we didn't do a final stability test, and I just run all my tests anyway. It was stable, but some of the OCCT really stresses things. But for argument's sake, if you're running Cinebench or something like that, it doesn't particularly stress it too much. But when you've got a Cinebench run that's hitting 80 odd degrees, it's like, whoa, that's not quite right. So the thing that we can conclude from this is running quick memory, please keep an eye on your temperatures, get in and go and look at your BIOS, make sure everything's right, and make sure your cooling's good as well. Because let's face it, we were running 3200 megahertz memory, and with the BIOS that we were running, even though we're running a H110, which is the twin 140mm fan, we were having problems keeping it all in check. And I've never had that problem with this CPU on any of the other platforms or any other boards that I've used in the past. So what I would conclude from this is that the BIOS still isn't quite right. We know we've got 3200 megahertz memory problems. I couldn't push beyond that, so I didn't really get a chance to stretch the legs. So when we did our final overclock test, it was 4.3 at 1.3 volts with 3200 megahertz memory, and I managed to bump the cache up a little bit as well. And it did well, but it just didn't do as well as I thought. So what I would say is go and have a look on the Overclock 3D website. I probably should have said that at the beginning. In fact, I'll have to film something that'll appear later. Oh, sorry, appear before. You'll get what I mean when you get there. But what we'll do is we'll just have a look at some quick tests. So with the IDA test, I've explained to you about the stock and then the overclock. So we know overclock was 32. Now you can see in this graph that the 3200 megahertz, they've blatantly spent a lot of time getting this right, because the tests are actually quite strong in this, and the 2800 megahertz did relatively well as well. The problem is it might do well with one kit, but when you've only literally got one kit that will work, you kind of would expect it to do quite well. But the fact that there's so little support for anything else, I personally think is a little bit, yeah, it's not that great. When we go on to Cinebench, obviously, it's very CPU orientated. We'll look at the CPU. It's a rendering test. So when we look in the graph, you can see that the Titanium actually didn't do that great with this one. The stock is at the bottom of the graph, and then the overclock is midships. And the other thing to remember here is that especially the X99A overclock, that was my initial test I did with the CPUs. I used that board to do the very, very first review with. So that was a pre-release BIOS as well. So the fact that the titanium is a little bit below this, still, again, that just drives home that things aren't quite right. R15, it's exactly the same kind of situation that we had before. When we go on to PC Mark 8, this is one of the ones that I had to throw in because this makes it look a little bit better. The PC Mark 8 tests were pretty good, and that was both with the conventional and the accelerated. But don't forget, you can go and have a look on the Overclock 3D website for all the graphs, all the tests. We did do games, we did lots of other benchmarks. There's like 18 odd pages that you can go and have a look at. So go and have a look at it there. But what we'll do now is move on to the conclusion. So moving on to the conclusion, award first, we're going to give it the aesthetics award because it is a very pretty board. When we are looking at the aesthetics, one of the things, the only bit that I don't particularly like is the I/O cover at the back. Those screws on it, they're not long enough, they don't actually go in. So that's the bit that lets it down. It feels a bit plasticky, it feels a bit cheap. It doesn't feel £300 motherboard. The other, the chipset heatsink and the MOSFET heatsink, they've got a real kind of beefiness and sturdiness to them that then just makes the lackluster approach at the I/O shield, you know, feel that much worse. People might not like the designs of the other ones, but they are, you know, they're chunky. They're kind of the rugby players of heatsinks compared to the kind of little wafy, kind of, with the Olympics terminology, like a little gymnastic. It's just thin and light, and it feels like it might break. So there's that. So aesthetics, we love it. We love the way it looks. But the performance, you know, it really didn't kind of come to fruition, really. One of the main things, you know, trying to keep it nice and short, 3200 megahertz with this, unless you get it with the bundled 3200 megahertz kit, at this present moment in time, I wouldn't, because if you buy one of the other ones, it might not work. Either that, or maybe you've got some spare memory or something like that. So that in itself is just something to keep in mind. I hope they get it fixed. If they do, what I will do is I will add an annotation, and if I can, because they're likely to say, oh, we've got a new BIOS, and if the board's still here, then I will try and test it. But obviously it does make my life, after swapping it all around, it's not a 5-minute process, but I will try my best for you, because I would love to see this thing performing better. And it does come down to that BIOS. 3000 megahertz, you're going to do relatively well with it, but you know, it's not as strong. The only real safe place is 2800 megahertz, and that is every other one that I've got here. They all seem to work, didn't have a problem with it, and you could overclock with them, and the temperatures were good as well. So 2800 megahertz for this is the safe zone as far as I'm concerned. One of you guys might get some obscure memory kit and find a place where it falls over. I obviously can't test everything, but as far as the sticks that I've got, and I have got G-Skill, Corsair, Kingston, Crucial. I don't think I've got Clev in 2800 megahertz, although I could have a look, but I've tested quite a lot of 2800 megahertz kits, and it went in fine and worked. And like I said, you've got the overclocks and good temperatures as well. So at this present moment in time, it is a good board. It does have some horrific memory limitations. The overclock socket is a big step forward for MSI though, and it has made some differences. And I would go as far as to say that you might be going, oh yeah, but it can't do this, and Asus can't do that, and yeah, you'd be right. But MSI just need to get busy with that BIOS. That's it. That is the problem that's holding it back at the moment. They need to get their engineers out of the tea room, stick a cattle prod up their bum, point them at the BIOS testing stations or whatever, and tell them to get to work, because this at the moment is, I don't particularly think that this is finished. It certainly shouldn't be on sale to the public in this state. And to be able to be giving people the indicator that 3200 megahertz works when it quite clearly doesn't, just isn't right. I'm going to assume that a BIOS is going to come out quite quickly after I say all this stuff, and that it might have been kind of hidden in the background for quite some time. It's probably the one that they wanted to send me, and I wouldn't do it because it wasn't on the website, because we've got to the point now that we don't test a BIOS unless it's public. Because what's the point in us testing a BIOS that might not ever come out? We want to test the stuff that you're going to have access to, because then that kind of makes it fair. So the long and short of it is, I do like it. I definitely see that it's got more to give. I certainly wouldn't advise anyone buy 3200 megahertz kit until you either hear back from me or some other source that does really in-depth testing as well, not just 3-minute stuff, gives you the green light for multiple memory sticks. Ignore anyone that's talking about the Corsair kits because we know they work and none of the others do. So, or that particular 3200 megahertz kit. So I'm hoping that I've both given you enough information, not necessarily scared you off, but just made you aware that, you know, if you've only got to get the wrong kit and it's going to appear like the board's broken, and it's really not. The only thing that's broken is the amount of effort that's being ploughed into that BIOS. So I really do hope that they get it sorted and quick, because to be honest with you, once they fix that, I actually think that we could be at the point of being able to get some really good temps. But one of the things I will say to the BIOS engineers is, what is going on with those temperatures with the 3200 megahertz? Because something's not quite right. Either the voltages in the BIOS are fixed and not being registered properly and you're kind of trying to hide something, or there is something somewhere going on where you guys need to get that under control. But for now, 2800 megahertz is an absolute sweet spot. Get your overclocks going. It got the most out of our CPU, so there are some good things to be said. The only time it really starts to slip is once you get past and up to that kind of high end. Now you may think 3200 megahertz is a big ask. It's really not. The amazing thing is, this is the first board that I've had that has been tripped over with high-end memory. So we have done our bit. We have done our testing. I've spent an awful long time trying to go through this, find all the little bits and bobs to get the most from it. So really now it's down to MSI. So should you buy it? There's certainly no reason why you shouldn't if you're going to keep your memory down. And that's really it. And the reason why we gave it the aesthetic award is kind of, it speaks for itself. It's an incredibly pretty board. And even, I mean, I look at it and go, I really like that. I'm personally really into grey at the moment, as you've probably seen with the colour of the office and all that kind of stuff. Oh, colour of the t-shirt as well. Thankfully my skin's not grey. But yeah, so I'm actually in big favour of this. The only thing that I would like to leave the review on is MSI. If you're going to do the, if you're going to have silver and everything like this, I think it's about time that you give us a graphics card to match. Silver Lightning, maybe? For now, at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Ding! Just a quick one before people start going absolutely nuts in the comments underneath. All of the issues that we've had with this board, or little, we'll call them niggles, we have fed back to MSI. And we're gonna help MSI as much as we can, so that when any new BIOSes come out or any questions that they have about the DIMMs that we've been using, the memory kits, BIOS settings, all that kind of stuff, we're going to stay in contact really closely with MSI so that basically for the it's not for us, it's just to make things better for you, but it's so that they can get the BIOS on this sorted out to make it a better product for any of the people out there that have already bought this, or any of you guys that are going to be thinking about buying it as well. So we don't just review them, we try and help get them fixed too.